policy areas, starting with negative gearing.
Yeah, how's that going, mate? That's going well for
the
you.
The market has dropped since you announced this before the last election.
So that's our fault, is it? The market's
your fault, but it does mean it might have a very different impact.
It's got a problem. You've got a problem with people having negative equity at the moment. You got any problems with that?
The market's been in a bubble for a long time, and the heat's coming out of the market. And many people would say that's a good thing. But as you know, David, the so-called modelling that was on the front page of the Oz today did not model Labor's plan, and we rejected. And I can show you a whole pile of modelling.
One element of it, but
Grattan Institute,
put that modelling to one side. Do you accept the market has changed since you formulated this policy? House prices have dropped. People are more nervous.
The market has come off a bit. Yeah.
And does that mean you need to respond by tweaking the policy, changing the policy?
Well, the overwhelming majority of economists say that the negative gearing reform is overdue. Badly, sadly overdue, and the best time to do it is when the market's coming off a bit, when people are withdrawing from the market, not when the market's overheated.
So when would this take effect if you win next year?
I don't know about what Chris Bowen has said about the date of effect,
but given where the market is right now, would you want it to happen straight away?
Well, I'm not sure what Chris Bowen has said about the timing, but it's the policy of the opposition to implement it, I expect, at the first opportunity.
So
we're not walking away
from July.
Well, I'm not going to put dates on it and potentially be in conflict with what Chris has said.
Fair enough.
I'm just wondering, we're not walking away from it, we
the uncertainty in the market at the moment, would it be a good idea to say we're still going to do it, but we want to wait until we're sure that the market's settled?
Well, 90% of the benefits of negative gearing go to existing housing stock, David. 10% to new stock. We want to expand the stock of new housing. We want to get young first home.
But I'm just asking whether it might be a good idea to hit pause, introduce it a little later.
No, I've already answered that question. This is a good time. This is a good time.
What was the answer?
When people are withdrawing from the market because of lack of access, difficulty in obtaining finance, this is the right thing to usher this in. Doing it when the market's overheated would be a more difficult time. So this doesn't change the dynamic for us.
Hang on. I don't get this.
I'm not surprised.
They propose a policy. They propose a policy when the market is overheated. And now they say it's the right time to do it because the market is not overheated. Well, let's just go through. No, I gave you about 20 minutes and you still didn't make any sense.
Maybe not 20.
You are prone to exaggeration, Barnaby. We've noticed.
What we have is a policy that is coming into place when one of the major issues on the news is people going to negative equity. That is, their loans are greater than the value of their house. And what they're going to do is dampen it further. We have a problem with house prices falling in the major capitals. Now, what they've said is, of course, they're going to grandfather the people who have rental houses, but of course, who's going to want to buy a rental house when you're not in the grandfathering provisions? Of course, what will that do to prices? It will drive them down.
It will drive prices down, won't it?
It's designed to drive them down. Why else are you doing it?
No, we don't accept that.
Look, you don't think it's going
to drive them up?
This is primarily a reform project.
Are you saying your negative gearing policy won't drive prices down?
The majority of economists say no.
Not at all.
Well, that's what...
you keep talking about housing affordability,
what are you doing it for,
helping young Australians to buy a house.
Well, all things are relative. I mean... What's so funny about that?
Because you're not making any sense, mate.
So funny about that?
You brought the policy to bring down prices, and now you're saying you're not going to bring down prices.
This is primarily
What's the point of your policy?
Reform.
Why are you on this show?
We want to make sure that negative gearing is more about young people getting their first opportunity than the people getting their seventh or eighth negative gearing opportunity.
By making it a little cheaper for
It's also about budget and priorities. More than $30 billion. I want you to let me finish my point,
because
David.
I'm still unclear as to whether you think your policy will lower prices or not.
I've seen no evidence from any of the economists, including the Grattan Institute, a survey of economists that suggests prices are going to rise as a result, which is what they were arguing. Now they want to... They were arguing... they were arguing initially when we announced that we're going to rise, and now they're arguing they're going to fall. So I can't have it both ways.
But you started this policy. Listen to this. He starts this policy because the market is overheated and they're going to bring prices down so you can afford the houses. Now they're saying the market is not overheated and it's not going to have any effect, which poses the logical question. Why are they doing that?
We said none of those things.
Why are they doing it?
We said none of those things.
Okay, but to be clear, you have said repeatedly, even today, that this is about helping young Australians get into the market.
David.
How does it do that?
Taxation reform, budget reform, and putting in place a taxation reform and budget reform that doesn't have a big impact on the housing market. That's what we've been arguing.
How does it
They've
help?
been
How
arguing
does it help young Australians get into the market? Just explain it to me.
By maintaining negative gearing for new housing stock and expanding housing stock.
But how does that help a young Australian wanting to buy their first home?
But by expanding housing stock in new houses. That doesn't change.
Because it makes them cheaper?
Yeah. Look, taxation reform.
But if there's more houses, but I'm just trying to get to the point of how does it make it easier for the young Australian buying their first home? Does it make it cheaper for them?
David, you're suggesting that our negative gearing reform will be the primary driver or an influential driver of housing prices into the future?
No. Whether it's any impact at all is what I'm asking. Does it make it cheaper for them to buy a house?
Well, if you have in place policies that continue to allow the housing stock to grow, and you can knock down an old house and build a new home, then you're going to, you'd like to think you're going to expand the stock of housing.
Make it more affordable.
And by maintaining negative gearing for new housing, you're going to increase the stock of housing.
Which makes it more affordable.
Then giving greater opportunity for young people to get a house.
By making it more affordable.
Well, this will be a small determinant on what the market does. The market, you've just suggested, the heat's come out of the market with or without the reform.
You make no sense whatsoever. Right. You are absolutely and utterly...
I think we've gone as far as
Fancy Barnaby Joyce telling anyone that they make no sense.
Just to rule a line under this. Just to rule underline this.
Garbage, what you just...
Joel, you're saying it won't put prices down at all?
It's not designed...
But it will make it more affordable for young people?
It's not primarily a policy seeking to influence housing pricing. It's a taxation,
maybe not primarily,
budget reform.
But whether it's going to have any impact on prices matters a lot to Australians right now.
I don't think that... None of the economists are saying there's a big impact, any impact on prices.
So why are you
it's not the primary driver
Why are you doing it? Why are you doing it?
It's a taxation reform.
Oh, it's a taxation reform.
I made the point. I made the point. The overwhelming benefit of capital gains.
It has no effect on
wealthy people. Negative gearing their seventh house.
Taxation reform.
You don't think that's a reason for reform?
Let's talk about.
You're taking away the demand for. So as people come off the grandfathering provision, no, I think you've proved to everybody the best thing I could have done then is let you talk. It worked perfectly.
Let's talk about the drought summit. Let's move to the drought summit. It's.